You ever see someone so quiet you'd think they wouldn't hurt a fly, but deep down, they've got years of rage bubbling under the surface?
Believe that.
Bet that's setting him back a penny.
That's Lester. Just your average, quiet, kind of awkward dude, the type you wouldn't look at twice. He's been getting walked on for as long as he can remember. Every day, his wife tears into him.
We had a good laugh.
It's just slow.
Making fun of him for being broke, for looking older than he is, for basically existing. To her, he's like some old, dusty appliance you keep in a garage. Useless, outdated, barely hanging on. Lester never talks back. He just takes it all in, not saying a word while she talks down to him like he's nothing.
I married the wrong night guard.
Oh.
It's not just at home either. Out on the street, he runs into an old buddy, or maybe more like an old tormentor, named Sam.
Just like in high school.
You went to high school?
Sam's the type of guy who peaked in high school and never let it go. He makes a sleazy comment about a woman and brags about how they've been married for nearly 2 decades now. Super weird and awkward, especially since his kids are right there. Lester just wants to get out of there as fast as he can. But Sam's not done. He steps in front of Lester, clearly trying to relive his glory days by showing his sons how he used to push Lester around. Lester silently begs for the moment to pass without incident. But when Sam lunges a little too close, Lester panics and stumbles right into a glass pane. Crash. Blood everywhere. Nose broken. Humiliated yet again. Next thing you know, Lester's in the hospital, sitting around with a busted face and a bruised ego. That's when he meets this guy, Malvo. He's got a calm, eerie vibe, like someone you'd instinctively know not to mess with.
A man beat you in front of his children?
Malvo notices Lester's injury and casually asks what happened. Lester tries to play it cool, saying it was just an accident, but Malvo isn't buying it. Eventually, Lester cracks and admits he was bullied.
The bully in high school is a bully now.
Malvo listens and just shakes his head, genuinely confused as to why Lester puts up with that kind of crap. He tells Lester that if someone had done that to him, he'd have ended them. In fact, he jokes, "Maybe I should do it for you." It's said half serious, half not, but that offhand comment lights a spark in Lester he never knew he had.
You let a man break your nose, then next time he tries to break your spine.
That night, Sam heads off to the bar like he always does, unaware that someone's already watching. After a few drinks and some flirting, he sneaks off with a woman into a storage room, clearly up to no good. But before he can do anything, out of nowhere, a blade comes flying, bam, straight to the back of the head. Game over. The killer? None other than Malvo. When the cops show up, Sam's already gone. The news spreads like wildfire in their small town. And while everyone else is shocked, Lester kind of has a feeling who did it. He hops into his car and tracks Malvo down in a nearby diner. Instead of giving a straight answer about what happened to Sam,
My God, is Sam dead?
Malvo flips the script and asks Lester how it felt. See, Malvo's no amateur. He looks at Lester and sees right through the timid act. He knows there's a part of Lester that secretly enjoyed what happened. Then he drops a truth bomb. All your life, you've been doing things the right way, and what has it gotten you? People walk all over you. If you want respect, you've got to be scary enough that no one wants to mess with you.
Your problem is you spent your whole life thinking there are rules. It's a red tide, Lester. You're just gonna get washed away.
That hits Lester hard. For years, he's been mocked by his wife, ignored by his brother, treated like a doormat. And now, someone actually stood up for him, even if it was in the most extreme way possible. But the fire inside him doesn't last long. When he gets home and sees his wife again, whatever confidence he felt shrinks right back down. He goes to fix the broken washing machine because that's what she yelled at him about earlier. And as usual, she's right behind him, nagging. No thanks, no appreciation.
You sure you know what you're doing?
Just more attitude. She doesn't even let him finish fixing it before flipping it on. Smoke pours out, the thing's toast. And instead of being mad at the machine, she lashes out at Lester, calling him a total failure. That's it. That's the breaking point. Lester finally snaps. When she mocks him one more time and dares him to hit her, he doesn't hold back. One swing with a hammer and years of pain explode into one violent moment. All that pent-up emotion finally spills out. And for the first time in his life, Lester feels powerful. But then the panic sets in. What now? He's never killed anyone before. He's not exactly a pro. So he does the only thing he can think of. He calls Malvo. Malvo says he's on his way to help.
Sure, Lester, I'll be right there.
Thank you.
But as soon as Lester hangs up, a new plan starts forming. Instead of waiting, he grabs a gun and thinks, what if I pin this all on Malvo?
You killed her.
Before Malvo even gets there, there's a knock on the door. But it's not him. It's the local police. They're there asking about Sam's death. Lester's nervous energy gives him away. An officer decides to take a look around and follows a blood trail down to the basement, where he finds a body. While he radios in the discovery, Malvo appears behind him, like a ghost, and kills the cop without blinking. Then Malvo just walks out, calm as ever, leaving Lester in shock. More officers show up, and now Lester's in full-blown panic mode. He runs down to the basement, looks around, and gets an idea. There's a poster on the wall. Without thinking too much, he runs straight into it hard, knocks himself out cold. When the cops find him, lying there all bloodied up with 2 corpses nearby, they assume he's another victim. Just like that, Lester's in the clear. But now things have gone from bad to worse. The whole department's on high alert. Roads are being shut down, cops are on edge, and they're hunting for answers. Meanwhile, out by one of the town exits, a sleek Mercedes speeds past a patrol car. Officer John gives chase and pulls it over. When the window rolls down, who's behind the wheel? Malvo, cool as ever. John asks him to step out, but Malvo stays calm and warns him not to push it. As John insists, his radio crackles, and it's his daughter's voice on the other end. That's when Malvo says something that chills John to the bone. I'm gonna roll this window up, and I'm gonna drive away. You'll go home, hug your daughter, and know you're still alive because you didn't try anything stupid tonight. John doesn't move. He lets him go. Whatever aura Malvo gives off, it's enough to scare even the bravest cop into backing down. Back in town, Lester puts on his grieving husband mask and crashes at his brother's place for a bit. From his brother, he finds out the police tore his house apart during the investigation. That's when he remembers the hammer, still hidden at home. He rushes back, heart pounding, and finds it right where he left it. Big sigh of relief. Just to play the part, he stuffs his face into his wife's clothes and starts wailing like a man in pain. But the tears? Fake. Not even a glimmer in his eyes. Then comes another knock. This time, it's the new police chief, Sue, and Officer Lisa. Lisa is sharp. She's already suspicious of Lester. Starts questioning him on the spot. Lester gets flustered, but Sue steps in, saying he remembers Lester from high school and finds it hard to believe someone that mild could be dangerous. Thanks to his soft-spoken image, Lester dodges another bullet. Sue tells Lisa to chill out and look elsewhere. But Lisa? She's not buying it. Something about Lester just feels off to her. Later, Lester runs into Lisa again at the pharmacy. She approaches him while he's picking up some meds, and this time Lester isn't pretending to be nervous. He tries to push back, saying he's starting to feel harassed. Then, without buying a thing, he bolts out of there. Lester was living on edge, constantly worrying that Officer Lisa might dig too deep and eventually stumble across the mess he was hiding. Just the thought of it made his stomach churn. He tried to carry on like everything was normal, even went back to work, hoping routine would keep suspicions off him. But fate clearly had a twisted sense of humor. His very first assignment back was dealing with an insurance claim for none other than Sam, the guy whose death Lester was connected to. He showed up at Sam's house to talk to the widow about the policy. She didn't seem all that broken up about her husband's death, though. In fact, she welcomed Lester in with a smile, already more interested in how much money she could get out of the situation. She even gave Lester a few subtle hints. If it could help her boost the payout, she'd be open to repaying him in ways that had nothing to do with money. Things started heading in a spicy direction between the two of them, but the whole moment got thrown off course when one of Sam's sons accidentally fired an arrow straight into his brother's butt. Yeah, totally random. But the chaos didn't go unnoticed. Turns out 2 shady-looking guys had been spying from nearby. They weren't just creepers. They were gang members who used to roll with Sam, and they believed someone needed to pay for his death. Seeing Lester all cozy with a widow gave them the idea that he might have had something to do with what happened. Later that day, while Lester was heading home, the 2 men caught him off guard. They grabbed him, tossed him in the trunk of their car, and drove off. Stuck in the dark, panicking, Lester fumbled for his phone and called his brother for help. But guess what? His brother was too glued to the screen, watching some movie, to even notice the call. Lucky for Lester, he had stuffed a stun gun in his pocket a while ago, a little something he borrowed from his brother's house. After a while, the car stopped near a lake. The guys pulled him out and dragged him toward the water. It was pretty clear what they were planning. One of them, a guy who couldn't hear or speak, started drilling into the ice, getting ready to dump Lester's body. Realizing his time was running out, Lester quickly blurted out that he didn't kill Sam. He He tried convincing them to back off. While the mute guy kept drilling, completely unaware of the conversation, Lester pulled out the stun gun and zapped the other one into unconsciousness. Then he shocked the second guy too. He didn't stick around to see what happened next. Lester booked it to the main road and flagged down a cop who was in the middle of writing a parking ticket. At first, the cop wasn't interested in Lester's frantic pleas. But Lester insisted he needed to be taken to the station. He even joked that he'd be fine getting arrested if that's what it took to get away from the crazies. Eventually, he jumped into the back of the police car, breathing a little easier now. But his relief didn't last long. Once they got to the station, he spotted the same two guys who'd kidnapped him. They were already there. Apparently, they had gone to a bar, started a fight on purpose, and got themselves arrested, all just to get into the same building as Lester. Their real goal? Track down whoever really took Sam out. Backed into a corner, Lester finally cracked. He told them about Malvo and his possible role in Sam's murder. The brothers didn't need much more. They bailed out right after and even told Lester they miss him. Creepy, right? While Lester was dealing with all that drama, Malvo was working on a different job. A wealthy supermarket owner named Tommy had hired him after receiving a threatening letter. Someone was blackmailing Tommy, and he wanted Malvo to figure out who and take care of it. Quietly. Malvo didn't waste time. He started digging and found the guy who delivered the letter. But under a little pressure, and probably a lot of fear, the man confessed he didn't know anything specific. Still, he believed Tommy was hiding some deep, dark secrets. Malvo saw potential in that and hatched a plan. He got the guy to write a new blackmail letter, one even scarier than the last. Then Malvo went out and bought some heavy-duty medication that messes with your head. Later that day, he swapped out Tommy's normal pills for the new ones. As Tommy approached his front door that evening, Malvo slipped away unseen. Looking inside, Tommy was hit with a horrifying sight. His beloved dog was dead. Lying next to it was the new blackmail letter. Furious, Tommy called Malvo to complain, but Malvo didn't care about Tommy's rant. He just asked if Tommy had the money. That question made Tommy go pale. He stammered, clearly hiding something. While he talked, he popped one of his new pills, not realizing they weren't what he thought. Suddenly, Tommy started rambling about religious stuff, fixating on a statue behind him. Later that night, feeling anxious, Tommy went to take a cold shower to calm himself. But when he turned the water on, thick, dark red liquid poured out. Blood. Tommy panicked. He had no idea Malvo had picked up some animal blood from a butcher shop earlier. See, Malvo knew Tommy was super religious, so he decided to mess with his head by recreating biblical plagues. First came the blood. Next, a full-blown swarm of locusts invaded Tommy's store the very next day. As Tommy stood there, stunned, his phone rang. A mystery caller demanded $1 million and said they'd call again tomorrow morning at 10. Tommy was convinced it was divine punishment. He believed if he didn't pay up fast, his eldest son would be the next to go, just like in the ancient plagues. Panicked, Tommy agreed to meet the caller and hand over the money. He didn't care about the cash anymore. All he wanted was to stop the nightmare. Meanwhile, Officer Lisa had been doing her own digging. She found out that the night the sheriff was killed, Lester made a phone call to a nearby motel, the exact one where Malvo had stayed. That couldn't be a coincidence. Lisa rushed back to the station to tell Saul, her boss. Saul was skeptical at first, but they both headed down to Lester's holding cell to follow up. To their shock, Lester was unconscious on the floor. They rushed him to the hospital, but what the doctor said next made Lisa's eyes go wide. He told her he had removed tiny shotgun pellets from Lester's hand, and those pellets had fibers on them, which meant they'd passed through something else before hitting skin. Lisa grew even more suspicious. She decided to check out Lester's house personally. After poking around, she noticed the washing machine looked like it had been messed with. She opened it up, hoping to find something, maybe the murder weapon, but Lester had already moved the hammer. Smart move on his part. Back at the hospital, Lester woke up to see a cop standing guard outside his room. That confirmed it. The police weren't buying his innocent act anymore. He had to act fast if he wanted to stay one step ahead. The hammer was still out there, and if the cops found it, it was game over. The only problem? Every window in the hospital room was locked tight. He paced the room, trying to figure out a way out. Just then, he heard footsteps. It was his younger brother. The moment he walked in, the tension was thick. His brother looked him dead in the eye and asked what he had done. Lester tried to deflect, but his brother wasn't having it. "Something's wrong with you," he said coldly. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Lester didn't say anything back, but deep down, that stung. Once again, someone close to him saw him as broken. And just like that, Lester decided his brother had to go too. As soon as his brother left, Lester pulled a switcheroo. He traded hospital beds with the patient next to him, used some hospital supplies to disguise himself, and lay there quietly pretending to be the other guy. Not long after, a nurse came by, wheeled him out, and Lester made his escape. Lester knew he had to act fast. After getting out of the hospital, he went straight home and grabbed the hammer he'd hidden behind a poster. He wasn't done yet, though. He dug up a few old pictures of his wife, even took one of her undergarments, then slipped out of the house like nothing had happened. Next stop, his brother's place. He made sure to come off casual, just a friendly visit. While no one was looking, Lester slid the hammer and the personal items into his brother's gun cabinet, where it would look like they belonged. Then he found a handgun and carefully tucked it into his nephew's school backpack. Everything had to be perfect. His goal? Frame his own brother for everything. With the murder weapon and clues pointing to Jess, it was only a matter of time before the police took the bait. After planting all the evidence, Lester quietly returned to his hospital room like he'd never left. His plan was simple but smart. Once the gun in the kid's bag was found, cops would go straight to Jess's cabinet. The planted photos, the hammer, it would all line up. And Lester? He'd be off the hook, clean and clear. Meanwhile, over on the other side of town, Tommy was on his way to the meeting spot that had been written in the blackmail note. He was supposed to hand over the cash. But at the last second, Tommy had second thoughts. See, years ago, he'd stumbled across a briefcase full of money, like $1 million just sitting there. Everyone in town thought he'd built his business from the ground up, but the truth? That money was a starting point. Feeling guilty, Tommy figured maybe returning it to the same spot would help ease his conscience. So he drove back to the same old place where he found it, dug a hole, and buried it again. What Tommy didn't know was that Malvo, the man he'd hired to handle the blackmailer, was already on his way to the meeting. Before he could get there, though, 2 cars pulled up and boxed him in. No warning, no questions, just a spray of bullets. Chaos exploded in the middle of the snowy woods. Lucky for Malvo, the blizzard gave him just enough cover to escape. This wasn't his first rodeo. He knew how to use terrain to his advantage. While running, he stopped near a cabin, took out a knife, and sliced his arm just enough to leave a blood trail. Sure enough, one of his attackers, a bearded guy, followed the red path through the snow. When Malvo finally confronted him, he didn't waste time. He asked who had sent him. Once he got his answer, Malvo finished him off quickly and coldly. Just as that went down, Lisa and John, 2 officers chasing leads, showed up at the scene. They were drawn by the sounds of gunshots. But by the time they got there, all they found was the dead body in the snow. Lisa, not one to wait around, immediately went off into the wilderness to look for whoever was behind it. John, gun drawn, stayed behind, unsure what to do. Back on the road, Tommy was headed home after reburying the money. But something fell off. The road ahead was covered with fish, dead ones, all over the place. Moments later, his worst nightmare came true. He found his son's car on the side of the road, totaled. Inside, both his son and another passenger were gone, killed instantly. Turns out, a freak tornado had passed through the lake earlier, sucking up water and fish and dropping them everywhere. The driver must have lost control in the middle of the storm. Tommy dropped to his knees in the snow, broken and stunned. He thought returning the money would make things right. But now, everything felt even worse. Malvo, now with more answers from a guy he'd taken out earlier, traced everything back to a certain gang. No more playing nice. He armed himself, walked into their base, and took care of business, one by one. Nobody got out. It was brutal and fast. Malvo was on a warpath, and nothing could stop him. Back in town, 2 little kids at school were goofing around when they knocked over a backpack. It just happened to be the one Lester had stuffed the handgun into. Suddenly, things got serious. The school called the cops. The police followed the trail back to the kid's house. Jess, Lester's brother, was already suspicious. He felt in his gut that something wasn't right. When he got home, Saul, a senior officer, was already there, poking around Jess's gun storage. Jess tried to explain that he had everything legally registered, but then Saul started pulling out things that had no business being there. Photos of Lester's wife, her clothing, the hammer, one piece after another piled up, and Jess could barely breathe. The case was closing in on him, and before he knew it, he was in cuffs. Not long after, Saul called Lester down to the station for questioning. The 2 had known each other in high school, so Saul tried to make sense of things, saying maybe Jess snapped under pressure. Meanwhile, Lester kept a straight face and played the concerned brother. All the planted evidence did its job. Just like that, Lester walked away scot-free. Now with all charges dropped, Lester felt like he was getting a fresh start. He even stopped by Sam's place again. Sam's widow was still anxious about the life insurance money. Lester told her he might know a shortcut to get things moving, but only if she was willing to cooperate. The implication was clear, and she seemed open to it. A year passed. Lester had remarried, this time to a co-worker named Linda, and was now one of the top salesmen at his company. He had money, love, respect. Life was finally going his way, but happiness didn't last. One evening, while checking into a hotel, Lester spotted someone he thought he'd never see again. Malvo, the man who changed everything. Lester tried to approach him, probably just to talk or get a feel for whether Malvo remembered. But Malvo didn't break character. He was undercover again, posing as a dentist for a new job. To avoid suspicion, Malvo pretended not to recognize Lester and walked off. But Lester followed. He couldn't help himself. And when he finally confronted Malvo, asking if he remembered him, Malvo gave him one last chance to back off. "Is this what you want?" he asked. Yes or no? Lester didn't know when to quit. His persistence ended up ruining months of work Malvo had put into the job, and that made Lester a liability. Knowing Malvo wouldn't hesitate to erase a threat, Lester panicked. He grabbed a nearby trophy and smashed it into Malvo as hard as he could. Then he ran. He raced home, packed a bag, and vanished. He knew the kind of person Malvo was: cold, relentless, dangerous. And he knew he wouldn't stop until he got revenge. Sure enough, Lester soon spotted Malvo lurking outside his house with a gun. He sprinted upstairs, thinking fast. Malvo entered, thinking he heard voices. But when he followed the sound, all he found was a tape recorder playing on loop. Lester had faked him out. Malvo limped away, bleeding badly from the earlier attack. He made it back to his place and started patching himself up. But just as he was getting the bleeding under control, Officer John showed up. This time, John didn't hesitate. No talking, no warnings. He pulled the trigger, and Malvo hit the floor dead. Police soon went through Malvo's things and found his tape recorder. Malvo had a habit of recording all his assignments. Sure enough, among the files was one involving Lester. And that was all the evidence they needed. They came for Lester. He ran again, this time jumping onto a snowmobile in a desperate attempt to flee. But he didn't get far. In his panic, he crashed. Even then, he kept running straight toward a frozen lake, ignoring the cops yelling for him to stop. Just like when he first crossed the line in a crime, Lester couldn't turn back. And this time, there was no escape. The ice beneath him cracked, and Lester vanished into the freezing water, gone for good, swallowed by the weight of everything he'd done. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on new content. Got thoughts or questions? Drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.